Welcome to the CAS Aviation Deep Dive,
Yes,
where we take a stack of aviation industry news
that's right.
and extract the most interesting insights just for you.
Mm.
This week, we've got mergers, acquisitions, wet leases, and even a look at a regional airline in India with ambitious growth plans.
Okay.
Buckle up. It's going to be a fascinating ride.
Well, what's fascinating to me is that we're seeing this almost contradictory trend in the industry, a push towards both consolidation and niche expansion happening at the same time.
All right, let's unpack this, starting with AirAsia X.
Okay.
They've been granted a 2-month extension to finalize their acquisition of AirAsia's short-haul airlines.
Right.
That sounds like a pretty big deal for the Asian aviation market.
It is.
Yeah.
This could potentially mean a merging of all the AirAsia brands under the AirAsia X banner.
Wow.
But there's a catch. AirAsia X needs to raise USD $230 million to close the deal.
USD $230 million.
Yeah.
That's no small change. Given that AirAsia's parent company, Capital A, has had its financial struggles.
Yeah.
Remember the Practice Note 17 status back in 2022?
Yeah.
What kind of investment strategy do you think they'll need to pull this off?
It's going to be tricky.
Yeah.
They're going to need to convince investors that this merger is not just about survival,
Right.
but about creating a stronger, more competitive entity. Improved network connectivity,
Okay.
better utilization of their fleet,
Yeah.
potential cost savings.
Got it.
These are all things they can highlight to make the deal attractive.
It's like building a Lego masterpiece, but needing to find those really specific,
yeah.
rare bricks to make it work.
Totally.
And speaking of expansion,
Okay.
let's shift gears and head over to India,
Right.
where a regional airline called Star Air is planning to add 5 aircraft to its fleet by early 2025.
Okay.
They're targeting the UDAN regional connectivity scheme, right?
Yes.
Connecting smaller cities.
Exactly. They're focusing on what are called Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities in India, places that haven't traditionally had strong air connectivity.
Okay.
What's impressive is that Star Air has already launched services on 90% of the routes assigned to them by the Indian government.
Wow.
They're clearly committed to this plan.
And they're not stopping there.
Oh.
I read that they're also planning a joint venture to get into the MRO business.
Okay.
That's maintenance, repair, and overhaul.
Yeah.
Quite an expansion from just flying passengers, don't you think?
It's ambitious, but it makes sense.
Yeah.
As they grow their fleet, they'll need to ensure efficient maintenance operations.
Mm-hmm.
Having an in-house MRO can save costs and ensure faster turnaround times, making them even more competitive.
So they're thinking long-term,
Right.
building a whole ecosystem around their operations.
Yeah.
Now let's hop over to Europe, where Lufthansa Group is acquiring a minority stake in AirBaltic.
Okay.
What stood out to me is this convertible share they're using.
Uh-huh.
What exactly is that? Sounds a bit complicated.
It's a bit nuanced,
Yeah.
but essentially it allows Lufthansa to invest EUR 14 million for a 10% stake in AirBaltic initially.
Okay.
The clever part is that this share converts to ordinary shares when AirBaltic goes public with an IPO.
Oh?
So it's like an investment with a built-in growth potential.
Ah, so they get a bigger piece of the pie once AirBaltic hits the stock market.
Exactly.
And speaking of AirBaltic,
Yeah?
they've been making headlines with all these wet lease agreements lately,
That's right.
even with Lufthansa and a Uruguayan startup.
Okay.
What's driving this trend?
Wet leases offer flexibility.
Okay.
It's basically like renting a car, but
Yeah.
in this case, it's a fully crewed and maintained airplane.
Okay.
It allows airlines to meet short-term demand increases without the long-term commitment of buying or leasing an aircraft.
So if an airline needs to cover a route during peak season, or, well, some of their planes are under maintenance,
Mm-hmm.
a wet lease is a handy solution.
Exactly. It's a win-win. The leasing airline makes money from their asset,
Yeah.
and the borrowing airline gets the capacity they need without a long-term commitment.
Okay.
It's a sign of the times.
Yeah.
Agility and smart resource utilization are becoming increasingly important in today's aviation landscape.
Okay. Let's fly across the Atlantic now and land in the U.S.,
All right.
where things are getting a bit dramatic in the world of airline mergers.
Okay.
The proposed merger between Frontier Airlines and Spirit Airlines is back in the news,
Oh,
and it seems a bit messy.
It's a saga with a few plot twists.
What?
Frontier is back with a renewed proposal,
Okay.
offering a combination of newly issued debt and ordinary shares,
Yeah.
valuing the deal at least USD 2.16 billion,
Okay.
but potentially reaching USD 2.9 billion.
Wow.
But Spirit Airlines CEO and chairman aren't exactly thrilled with the terms.
Why not?
Well,
It sounds like a decent offer,
yeah.
especially with the potential to reach USD 2.9 billion.
Right.
What's the sticking point?
Well, Spirit Airlines is currently under Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection.
Oh, right.
And they see this offer as a significant reduction in value compared to a previous agreement in principle from 2024.
Oh,
They're also exploring a standalone reorganization plan,
okay.
which they believe will make them stronger in the long run.
Got it.
So it's a tough choice.
Yeah.
Merge and potentially have less control,
Mm-hmm.
or go it alone and face the challenges of restructuring independently.
It's a real crossroads for them,
Yeah.
especially considering this isn't their first dance with a merger.
Right.
Remember back in 2022 when they tried to merge with Frontier
Mm-hmm.
and then JetBlue swooped in with a higher offer?
Yeah.
It's like a real-life soap opera.
It is, and it highlights the complex dynamics at play in the airline industry.
Mm.
It's not just about numbers. It's about control strategy
Yes.
and ultimately survival in a fiercely competitive market.
It's a lot to untangle.
It is.
So what does this all mean? How can we make sense of these seemingly disparate events?
I think what we're seeing here are different flavors of strategic maneuvering,
Okay.
whether it's consolidation through mergers,
Mm-hmm.
strategic partnerships through wet leases, or
Yeah.
niche expansion like Star Air in India.
Right.
Airlines are trying to position themselves for success in a rapidly evolving industry.
So it's all about finding the right moves on the chessboard of the aviation world.
Yes.
But what makes this even more interesting is that all these moves are happening against the backdrop of a global economic landscape that's been, shall we say, less than stable in recent years.
Absolutely. The pandemic,
Yeah.
supply chain disruptions,
Yeah.
fluctuating fuel prices,
Right.
and geopolitical uncertainties.
Yeah.
All these factors are creating a very dynamic and unpredictable environment for airlines.
It's like trying to fly a plane through a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
It takes skill, experience,
Right.
a bit of luck to navigate these turbulent times.
Hmm.
And speaking of navigating, let's take a deeper dive into the specifics of these stories after a short break.
Okay. It's definitely a balancing act for these airlines. Let's go back to AirAsia X for a moment. We talked about the challenges of raising that USD 230 million. Where do you think they might look for funding given the financial headwinds Capital A has faced?
Well, traditional investors might be hesitant given the Practice Note 17 situation. Maybe they'll explore venture capitalists who are more open to risk, or even sovereign wealth funds looking for strategic investments in the growing Asian aviation market.
Those are definitely possibilities. It'll be interesting to see what kind of creative financial engineering they come up with to make this deal work.
Speaking of creative strategies, let's talk more about Star Air's foray into the MRO business. It's a bold move for a regional airline, especially one focused on connecting smaller cities. What kind of impact could this have on the Indian aviation landscape?
It could be significant. Remember, India has a vast and geographically diverse population, and many smaller cities have been underserved by air travel. Star Air's focus on regional connectivity combined with their MRO expansion could create a ripple effect.
You mean more connected cities, more business opportunities, more jobs?
Exactly. It could stimulate economic growth in those regions, potentially even attracting other businesses to invest in aviation infrastructure and services. It's a fascinating example of how a seemingly small player can have a big impact on a larger ecosystem.
It's like they're planting a seed that could grow into a whole new aviation hub. Now let's circle back to Lufthansa and their investment in AirBaltic. We talked about those convertible shares, giving them a potential for a bigger stake down the line. But what's in it for AirBaltic? What do they gain from this partnership beyond the initial investment?
Access to Lufthansa's vast network and expertise is a big one. Lufthansa is a global giant in the aviation industry, and their knowledge of route optimization, marketing, and even aircraft maintenance can be invaluable to a smaller airline like AirBaltic.
So it's like having a mentor with deep pockets who can help you navigate the complexities of the industry.
That's a good analogy. And remember, they've already been working together through those wet lease agreements, so there's a foundation of trust and collaboration there. This investment could deepen that relationship, leading to even more benefits for both parties.
It's like dating before you get married, making sure there's a good synergy.
Now,
Okay, let's return to the U.S. and that will they, won't they saga between Frontier and Spirit. You mentioned that Spirit Airlines is exploring a standalone reorganization plan. What might that look like? And what are the chances they'll choose that path over the merger?
It's tough to say for sure, but a standalone plan would likely involve restructuring their debt, renegotiating contracts with suppliers, and potentially even streamlining their operations to become more efficient.
So tightening the belt and focusing on becoming leaner and meaner to compete in the ultra-low-cost carrier market.
Exactly. They'd be betting on their ability to navigate the challenges of Chapter 11 and emerge as a stronger, more competitive airline on their own. It's a risky move, but it could pay off if they can convince creditors and investors that they have a viable path to profitability.
So it's a gamble either way, merge and potentially lose some control or go it alone and face the uncertainties of restructuring. What do you think will happen? Will they go for round two with Frontier or will they try to fly solo?
It's a tough call. I think a lot depends on the details of their standalone reorganization plan and how confident they are in its viability. They'll also need to weigh the potential risks and rewards of merging with Frontier, including the potential for regulatory hurdles and the challenge of integrating two very different company cultures.
It's a high-stakes decision with no easy answers.
Yeah.
And it's a reminder that the aviation industry is a dynamic and unpredictable landscape.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the big players like Lufthansa or AirAsia. The story of Star Air shows that regional airlines can also play a crucial role in shaping the future of air travel.
Right? They're not just connecting cities, they're connecting people, creating opportunities and driving economic growth in regions that have been traditionally underserved.
It's a testament to the power of innovation and the ability of smaller players to disrupt established norms. And it makes me wonder, with all these changes happening, what does it all mean for the future of air travel?
That's the big question, isn't it? Will we see more consolidation with a handful of mega airlines dominating the skies? Or will there be room for niche players like Star Air to thrive?
And what about the passenger experience? Will air travel become more accessible and affordable, or will it become more fragmented and complex as airlines try to differentiate themselves?
These are all questions worth pondering as we watch this industry continue to evolve. And speaking of evolution, let's take a moment to step back and connect all these stories to the bigger picture. What are the key takeaways for our listeners?
I think one of the main things we're seeing is this incredible adaptability in the aviation industry. Airlines are constantly having to adjust to changing economic conditions, geopolitical events, and even technological advancements.
It's like they're flying through a constantly shifting wind tunnel, always having to make course corrections to stay on track.
Exactly. And the stories we've discussed today illustrate different ways airlines are doing just that. Whether it's through mergers, strategic partnerships, or niche expansion, they're all searching for the right formula to navigate the complexities of the modern aviation landscape.
So adaptability is key.
Yeah.
But what else can we glean from these stories? What are some of the other key themes that emerge?
Well, one theme that's impossible to ignore is this ongoing trend of consolidation in the industry. We see it with AirAsia X's potential merger, and we saw hints of it with Lufthansa's strategic investment in AirBaltic. Right. And even the back and forth between Frontier and Spirit, while it hasn't resulted in a merger yet, still speaks to this larger trend. Airlines are looking for ways to become more competitive, and sometimes that means joining forces, even if it involves some complicated negotiations.
It's almost like a game of musical chairs, except the music never really stops.
Yeah.
And speaking of music stopping, I think another key takeaway is the importance of long-term strategic thinking.
Absolutely. Star Air's move into the MRO business is a perfect example of that. They're not just focused on flying passengers today, they're thinking about how to build a sustainable and resilient operation for the future.
It's like playing chess instead of checkers, thinking several moves ahead, anticipating challenges, and laying the groundwork for long-term success.
And that brings us back to the questions you raised earlier about the future of air travel. What will the industry look like in 5, 10, or even 20 years?
Will we see more mega airlines with vast global networks? Or will there be room for smaller niche carriers to carve out their own space? Will technology disrupt the industry in ways we can't even imagine yet?
Those are all fantastic questions, and honestly, I don't have a crystal ball. But what I can say is that the aviation industry has always been characterized by innovation and adaptation.
Think about the evolution from propeller planes to jets, from paper tickets to online booking, from cramped cabins to lie-flat seats in business class.
Exactly. Change is constant, and the airlines that thrive are the ones that can anticipate and adapt to those changes.
So while we can't predict the future with certainty, I think it's safe to say that it's going to be an exciting ride.
And who knows, maybe one day we'll be doing a CAS Aviation deep dive on the first commercial spaceflight to Mars.
Now that would be a fascinating episode. But for now, we'll have to stick to the terrestrial realm of air travel.
And I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored mergers, acquisitions, strategic partnerships, and the rise of regional airlines. We've delved into the financial complexities, the strategic maneuvering, and the impact of all these changes on the future of the industry.
We've unpacked quite a lot, haven't we? And I hope our listeners have enjoyed this deep dive into the world of aviation.
Me too.
Hmm.
And if there's one thing we've learned today, it's that the aviation industry is anything but boring. There's always something new happening, some new development to analyze, some new trend to explore.
So we encourage you to keep an eye on the skies, stay curious, and join us next time for another CAS Aviation Deep Dive. Until then, happy flying.